Hi guys, today I'm working on the Ram and I'll be installing a cold air intake. So let's get started. So what I'm installing today is the new cold air intake from Evil Energy. The kit seen here comes with a sticker and filter cover, 2 pipe couplers and hose clamps, a length of rubber sealer and velocity stack adapter for the filter, a small pouch of bolts, more hose clamps, and a length of rubber hose. Of course, the cone filter, which seems quite large, and the 2-piece heat shield. And finally, the intake tube, which like the heat shield has a nice black hammered finish. So let's pop the hood and get started. First, I unplug the air temperature sensor. Then I disconnect the PCV breather hose from the airbox. Next, I loosen the hose clamp holding the intake pipe to the throttle body. Then I unclip the 4 clips holding the air filter cover on. With it loose, I can now lift the intake pipe off and set it aside along with the old air filter. Now I remove the engine cover to access the other end of the PCV breather hose, which I wiggle and pull out. Then I press the supplied breather hose into the PCV port and hold it in place with a small hose clamp. I can now put the engine cover back on and route the breather hose over the engine and through the hole on the side of the cover. Next, I slip a shorter piece of rubber coupler onto the throttle body and secure it in place with one of the large hose clamps. Now I'm going to start assembling the heat shield. I start by placing the velocity stack adapter into the larger metal piece and tighten the 3 screws with a 3mm Allen key. Then I flip it over and fit the filter over the other end of the velocity stack adapter. Then tighten the clamp and slip on the mesh cover. To attach the backside of the heat shield, I use the 6 supplied screws and lock nuts and tighten them with a 2mm Allen key and 7mm wrench. Then I can install the weather strip to the top of the heat shield to help seal against the bottom of the hood. This stuff is a tight fit and needs to be worked into place with the corners being the trickiest. I'm impressed that the length provided was a perfect fit. And now it's ready to be installed on the truck. So the heat shield actually fits perfectly into the airbox location by sliding into the grooves on the right side, then locking the 4 airbox clips into the slots on the left side. Now I'm going to prep the intake tube by first popping in the rubber grommet for the air temp sensor. Then I pull the sensor out of the stock intake tube and place it into the new intake grommet. The longer rubber coupler then goes on the straight end of the intake tube and gets clamped in place. Now back on the truck, I carefully slip the intake over the throttle body and over the air filter flange and work the couplers into place before tightening the clamps. Then I grab the loose end of the PCV breather hose and slide it onto the intake port and tighten the small hose clamp. Then finally I reconnect the air temperature sensor plug and that's it. So that was a pretty easy, straightforward install and probably the best fitting intake I've ever put in. Evil Energy really did a good job with this one. Now let's see how it works. Now please ignore the annoying rattle from my exhaust, but here goes. Call me crazy, but the throttle response seems to be a little better. It sounds pretty good too. So when cruising along, the intake is quiet as can be, but when you open the throttle, you notice a nice throaty sound. That exhaust vibration is terrible, but the intake sure sounds beefy. Just listen to that roar. This video is brought to you by Evil Energy. Evil Energy specializes in high quality fuel and cooling systems, intake and exhaust components, and more. You can use coupon code NHBH to save 10% off your order. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.